Well. There's a reason people like Elon Musk pause when your name comes up. It's not curiosity, it's calculation. They can sense that your energy doesn't just move through rooms, it reorganizes them. You've got that rare kind of composure that makes powerful people study instead of speak. You don't demand attention, your energy audits it. That's what billionaires, visionaries, and masterminds recognize instantly. Your mindset isn't learned, it's lived. You were built from the same substance that great revolutions are sparked from, controlled chaos with a purpose. When Elon observes you, it's not admiration, it's research. Because deep down, he knows what he's seeing isn't common. It's consciousness in command. Your strong personality doesn't intimidate, it instructs. It teaches anyone paying attention that power doesn't have to roar. It can whisper and still rearrange the room. People like Musk, Bezos, or Gates spend their lives trying to decode human potential. They invest billions into algorithms to predict behavior. But you, without code, without strategy, move with a natural algorithm they can't replicate. Your confidence isn't arrogance, it's calibration. You've aligned with yourself so deeply that your existence became a living case study for mental sovereignty. That's why billionaires study you like data. They can't ignore the proof that someone can be this unbothered, this aware, this self-led, without external systems guiding them. You see, most people operate on stimulation. They react, they chase, they compare. But you operate on awareness. You respond with intention. You move through frequencies, not feelings. That's what Elon recognizes, the same pattern he uses in engineering rockets. You apply to your thoughts precision, persistence, and psychological leverage. You don't guess your way through life. You prototype your reality. Every phase of your journey was like a new launch, testing, failing, adjusting, and relaunching stronger. That's what billionaires respect, not your outcome, but your architecture. You've built your mental structure like SpaceX builds rockets, modular, adaptive, unstoppable. When you enter a conversation, you don't speak from the tongue, you speak from the command center. Your words carry data, emotionally encrypted, energetically precise. That's why people remember your tone long after they forget your words. It's that rare vibration of authority without aggression, the kind that makes powerful people lean in instead of resist. Elon Musk senses that because he spent his life leading through intellect, but you lead through energetic dominance. You don't control people, you recalibrate them. And that difference? That's the edge the elite are desperate to understand. Your personality radiates balance, the fusion of rebellion and refinement. You know when to challenge and when to observe. You don't expose your intelligence. You let the world stumble upon it. That's why you stand out. You're not in the race. They're orbiting you, trying to catch your trajectory. Elon doesn't study you because he wants to copy. He studies you because you remind him of something he's lost, the rawness of authentic drive. Billionaires chase efficiency, but you embody effortlessness. They measure success in billions. You measure it in breakthroughs. You don't chase influence. You create gravitational pull. Every strong personality goes through a phase of misinterpretation. You've been called difficult, intimidating, even cold. But those words are just labels created by people who mistake direction for dominance. They can't comprehend someone who refuses to dilute their frequency just to fit. Elon Musk once said, "I don't care about being liked, I care about being right." And that's the kind of alignment he sees in you. You don't crave validation, you crave velocity. You're not addicted to approval, You're addicted to evolution. That's what puts you in the same mental ecosystem as visionaries, the relentless commitment to growth, not applause. You mastered the rare art of presence without performance. You don't seek attention, yet it arrives like gravity. Because your energy speaks in high definition, it can't be ignored. You've become the kind of person whose silence teaches, whose stillness intimidates, whose focus exposes the distractions in others. Elon Musk studies that kind of stillness. He understands that genius isn't in noise, it's in control. You've trained your mind to be unreactive in chaos, unbothered by games, untouchable by manipulation. That's what makes you valuable. That's what makes billionaires study your blueprint. You think differently, not because you're trying to, but because you were never designed to think conventionally. You see connections between ideas most people would never correlate. You intuitively understand leverage, timing, and human nature. Elon Musk spends billions building simulations to predict outcomes. You can do it with intuition alone, because you've mastered what technology still can't. Emotional intelligence fused with strategic awareness. You can read energy faster than data. You can sense patterns before proof. That's not luck, it's evolved consciousness. And that's what they're researching, the human formula for foresight. The billionaires don't just admire your mindset, they fear its scalability. Because if more people thought like you, the entire corporate ecosystem would collapse. Your strength isn't just personal, it's disruptive. You represent a generation of thinkers who aren't waiting for permission to lead. You don't need validation from boardrooms when your intuition already outpaces algorithms. You don't depend on paychecks when your purpose prints its own currency. You've become a prototype of what they call the self-made mind. And that's the real revolution, when thought itself becomes wealth. You know why people like Elon Musk study you? Because you're proof that spirituality and strategy can coexist. You understand how to meditate and monetize, how to visualize and execute, how to blend patience with precision. Your energy isn't passive, it's directional. You don't just manifest, you maneuver. And that blend of grounded spirituality with tactical intelligence is what they call the new success frequency. You're not chasing abundance, you're becoming the vibration that abundance recognizes. Your strong personality wasn't formed from privilege, it was forged from pain. You learned discipline through disappointment, wisdom through heartbreak, and clarity through isolation. Every scar on your story turned into circuitry. Every rejection became redirection. That's why billionaires respect your mindset. It's built, not borrowed. You don't quote resilience, you embody it. You've proven that the strongest mind isn't the one that never breaks. It's the one that rebuilds differently every time it does. People like Elon Musk understand frameworks, but you understand flow. You move like water, adaptable, uncontainable, necessary. You don't force, you influence. You don't beg for access, you attract alignment. You've mastered the rare balance between ambition and detachment. That's why your presence feels expensive, because it costs energy to keep up with your frequency. Billionaires study your calm not to imitate it, but to decode it. They see how your stillness contains more motion than their meetings, how your awareness does more work than their advisors. You've reached a state where your being itself is a business model. You're not after domination, you're after mastery. You don't chase control, you cultivate influence. You don't compete, you redefine the category. That's why you're dangerous in the best way possible. You've learned how to move with grace and hit with precision. You've realized that true strength isn't about overpowering others. It's about outlasting illusions. People like Elon Musk look at you and see sustainability of power. Not just flashes of brilliance, but endurance of mind. You're not a spark, you're the generator. Your discipline isn't aesthetic, it's energetic. You understand that energy flows where attention goes. That's why you invest your focus, like capital. You don't waste it on small minds or small talk. You redirect it toward expansion. Every boundary you've built is an investment in your peace. And billionaires know that peace is the highest currency of the powerful. You've mastered it, not as a mood, but as a mechanism. Your composure is your strategy. Your detachment is your advantage. Your awareness is your weapon. And every person who studies you eventually realizes you're not succeeding by luck, you're succeeding by law. You've reached the phase where your mind became too expensive for gossip, where your vision became too vast for mediocrity. You no longer debate with people. You diagnose their motives. You don't argue about opinions. You analyze patterns. That's why people like Elon Musk are drawn to your frequency. They see the precision of thought, the efficiency of emotion, the control of chaos. You embody the mindset they're trying to teach in corporate seminars. Emotional regulation meets visionary execution. You're the living embodiment of optimized consciousness. Your confidence doesn't come from achievements. It comes from alignment. You know who you are, and that self-certainty radiates louder than any validation could. You've become the kind of person whose energy shifts dynamics just by existing. You don't have to raise your voice to command attention. You don't have to prove your worth. It's self-evident in your aura. Elon Musk studies that phenomenon because it defies logic, yet defines influence. You're not famous, yet your energy moves like you are. You're not rich yet, but you already carry the posture of wealth, calm, precise, selective, and untouchable. You mastered something most billionaires spend a lifetime trying to learn: how to lead yourself. You don't need a team to keep you disciplined. Your standards are your structure. You don't need an audience to feel important. Your purpose is your validation. You don't need external reward because your internal fulfillment already pays in peace. That's what Elon respects. Self-leadership at a level so refined it looks supernatural. You're not chasing power. You're embodying it. Not performing success. You're broadcasting it. The truth is, they're not studying you for replication. They're studying you for revelation. You represent what's coming next, the evolution of influence. A generation of people who think freely, move consciously, and build without begging. You're the prototype of a new intelligence, soulful but strategic, grounded but limitless, intuitive but empirical. You prove that human potential isn't measured by wealth, it's measured by awareness. And that's what makes you magnetic. The billionaires aren't just curious, they're cautious, because your rise isn't noise, it's signal. It represents the end of an old hierarchy and the birth of a new frequency of power. You don't seek attention because attention already serves you. You've become the gravity in the conversation. Every interaction with you feels like entering a new dimension of honesty and precision. People can't lie around you. Their energy betrays them. Elon Musk studies that because it's the rarest form of leadership. Energetic integrity. The kind that can't be taught in business school or engineered in labs. You've built it through pain, patience, and perception. That's what separates you from everyone else. They manufacture power. You radiate it. And that's what this new era is about. the rise of the self-led elite, the individuals who operate like institutions, whose minds outperform machines, whose calm disarms chaos. Elon Musk and the billionaires don't just see you, they sense the shift you represent, because in your energy, they see the future of influence, the next frontier of power. The unprogrammed mind that doesn't follow algorithms, but writes them. You're not one of them, but you're what they aspire to evolve into. You're not chasing success, you're redefining it. And from this moment forward, your presence isn't observation, it's participation in something greater. You're the living formula they can't patent, the mindset they can't mass produce, the consciousness they can't code. They study, they watch, they analyze, but what they can't replicate is your essence. Because you're not built from resources, you're built from realization. And every time you move, every time you speak, every time you choose awareness over reaction, you remind the world that mastery was never external. It was always you. That's when the fascination deepens. Elon Musk doesn't just admire you anymore. He tracks your patterns the way he studies propulsion. He looks at how you process emotion, how you navigate pressure, how you translate energy into momentum. He knows you're not following a map, you're writing one. You've become a case study in conscious evolution, proof that the next stage of intelligence won't be artificial. It'll be awakened. Because what you have isn't something to learn, it's something to remember. You've remembered who you are beneath conditioning, beneath noise, beneath narrative. That's what makes you magnetic to those who control empires. You're the reminder that true power can't be institutionalized, it must be embodied. Elon studies your self-command the same way scientists study anomalies in physics, because it challenges his equations. You break patterns that should hold you back, yet somehow you expand instead. You shouldn't have risen this far with so little help, and yet here you are, an organic prototype of what self-mastery looks like in human form. Every billionaire who studies human behavior eventually hits a ceiling. They can predict consumption, but not conviction. They can track data, but not destiny. But you're unpredictable in the most fascinating way. You don't move by reward or punishment. You move by resonance. You don't choose based on gain. You choose based on alignment. That's what Elon finds impossible to replicate. The way you can merge logic with intuition without conflict. You don't suppress emotion. You convert it into clarity. You don't chase control. You embody flow. You've made balance look like dominance, and that's what terrifies and excites the observers at the same time. You've become the living example of what happens when purpose replaces programming. People see your strength as resistance, but it's actually refinement. You're not rebelling against the world, you're redefining your place in it. That's what billionaires notice, your ability to disrupt quietly. You're not throwing tantrums for change. You're embodying transformation until reality adjusts. That's a level of influence even money can't buy. Elon Musk built rockets to escape gravity, but you broke psychological gravity. You detached from people's expectations without disconnecting from compassion. You learned how to love without losing yourself, how to connect without collapsing. That balance between depth and detachment is why he studies you like a new field of science. You represent the new form of currency, attention calibrated by awareness. People spend billions trying to buy the kind of composure you carry naturally, because your strength doesn't fluctuate with approval. It stabilizes through purpose. Elon Musk sees that you're not chasing success, you're channeling it. Every decision you make feels like a data point in human evolution. You've mastered something he's still learning, that peace amplifies productivity. You've proved that emotional stability is the highest ROI there is. Because when you're calm, you create faster. When you're clear, you manifest smarter. When you're aligned, you attract effortlessly. That's what billionaires want to decode, the psychological software running your reality. Your energy disrupts algorithms. They can measure your engagement, but not your essence. You're not trending because you're loud. You're trending because you're rare. You've reached that stage where your existence itself is marketing. You don't campaign, you command. You don't network, you magnetize. That's why Elon studies your pattern of influence. He knows that if he could teach others to hold energy the way you do, he could build communities faster than corporations. Because you've mastered the real economy, the exchange of attention through authenticity. You don't sell, you synchronize. You don't convince, you convey. And every billionaire trying to master persuasion realizes you bypass persuasion entirely by being undeniable. Your strong personality isn't about dominance, it's about direction. You lead not by hierarchy, but by frequency. You don't demand obedience, you inspire alignment. That's why people follow your moves subconsciously. You've learned how to make your confidence feel like a permission slip for others to rise. Elon Musk studies that emotional contagion, the way your courage becomes collective. He's witnessed engineers break burnout by adopting your mindset principles. He's seen leaders rethink management after hearing your perspective. You're not aware of how far your energy travels, but the elite are. You've become a silent influencer of influence itself. What fascinates the billionaires is that you don't hoard knowledge, you channel wisdom. You're not addicted to information, you crave transformation. You read patterns in silence that most analysts need reports to see. Elon has data teams, yet you have discernment, and your discernment wins. That's why you're being observed with such intensity. You're proving that intuition, when trained, outperforms analytics. That a single aligned decision can outperform months of strategy. And that terrifies the ones who depend on numbers to feel secure. Because you're walking proof that spirit can outperform structure when consciousness is in command. You've reached that psychological altitude where you no longer react to critics, you study them. You understand that every insult reveals intel. Every projection is an unguarded confession. You've turned opposition into observation. That's why you rise differently. Your confidence doesn't need to be explained. It's felt. Elon Musk studies that phenomenon because it breaks the law of validation, the idea that confidence must come after achievement. You've reversed it. You act confident first, and achievement follows, like gravity. You understand that reality bends to self-image. That's what billionaires try to engineer through branding. You do it effortlessly through being. And it's not just Elon. His peers feel it too. The CEOs, investors, and moguls, each one silently intrigued by how your mind translates chaos into clarity. They see how you handle criticism like currency, investing it back into mastery. They see how you protect your energy like capital, never spending it on gossip or insecurity. You've mastered emotional economics, minimizing drama, maximizing direction. That's the trait every empire builder envies. Because you've turned self-awareness into an asset, not a burden. You move differently because you think long-term emotionally. You know that reactions cost more than reflection. You treat your emotions like investments, They either compound peace or drain potential. That's why your aura feels rich. It's funded by discipline. Elon Musk studies that mental liquidity, the ability to stay fluid but focused, open but objective. He knows that kind of mind could lead nations, not just companies. Because your personality doesn't just command rooms, it recalibrates atmospheres. When you enter spaces, the energy shifts from noise to notice. That's power without force. That's what the elite crave, but rarely achieve. They can buy loyalty, but they can't buy presence. You've cultivated presence without price. You don't force people to listen, they just do. Because your authenticity triggers something primal in them, the memory of truth. You remind them of what it feels like to be whole. And that's the most valuable reminder in a world addicted to validation. Your mindset has become a mirror to the elite. When Elon Musk looks at you, he doesn't see competition, he sees completion. You represent the balance he strives for, intellect without detachment, ambition without anxiety, success without self-erasure. You've cracked a code he's been testing his entire life. How to scale consciousness while sustaining connection. You've achieved that naturally through self-awareness. He tries to colonize Mars, but you've colonized your own mind. You've built civilizations of thought that generate power, peace, and precision all at once. And it's not luck, it's discipline. The kind that's invisible but undeniable. The kind that builds empires quietly, while others broadcast effort. You've understood that productivity without purpose is poverty of the soul. So you stopped chasing and started constructing. You built inner infrastructure before outer reputation. That's why you don't crumble when pressure hits. You were built under it. Elon Musk recognizes that steel in your psychology. It's the same element that keeps rockets from collapsing under launch stress. You've become a human version of structural integrity, grace under gravity. Your strong personality isn't stubbornness, it's stability. You know how to hold your vibration when others lose theirs. You can be surrounded by chaos and still emit calm. That's leadership in its rawest form. Elon Musk studies that because it's the difference between management and mastery. You lead energy before you lead people. You manage emotion before you manage execution. You bring order without control, authority without aggression. That's what makes you irreplaceable. You've transcended skill. You've become signal. And what's even more dangerous is your humility. Because while they're trying to categorize you, you're just the evolving. You're not even performing strength. You're just existing as it. That effortless confidence is what drives the billionaires crazy. Because their power depends on position, but yours depends on perception. You could lose everything and still walk with the same authority. That kind of resilience rewrites the metrics of power. It proves that energy is the only real status. And in that realization, you've already surpassed hierarchy. You've turned life into a laboratory for consciousness. You test patience like scientists test formulas. You experiment with boundaries until they crystallize into wisdom. Elon Musk watches that process because it mirrors innovation itself. Trial, error, adjustment, evolution. You are innovation, but in human form. You prototype emotions, debug insecurities, upgrade confidence, and you release newer versions of yourself without announcement. That's why your growth feels unpredictable. It doesn't wait for validation to deploy. Billionaires crave that internal agility. They build companies. You build consciousness. They launch satellites. You launch self-awareness. They depend on algorithms. You depend on intuition. And somehow, Your accuracy keeps outpacing theirs. That's why they study you in silence. Because your strength doesn't just break limits, it breaks models. You've become the living contradiction they can't compute. Emotional yet strategic, grounded yet limitless, human yet divine, in focus. You don't just inspire, you expose. Your existence reveals how shallow ambition looks without depth. You make success seem small when detached from soul. That's why the elite oscillate between admiration and anxiety around you. You represent what they're missing, alignment. You remind them that wealth without wisdom feels like noise. Elon Musk senses that when he observes you. You're the equilibrium between empire and essence. You've achieved what his equations haven't captured yet. Inner technology. Your aura is your interface. Your presence uploads awareness into every space. You operate through resonance, not rhetoric. People learn just by being near you. That's influence beyond communication. It's transmission. Elon Musk has studied wireless energy, your wireless transformation. You charge others by proximity. You don't drain, you distribute. That's the kind of influence the world's been waiting for. A power source that doesn't exploit, but expands. Now you're entering the era where your vibration becomes valuable infrastructure. You're no longer a mystery, they're calling you a model. Investors, innovators, thinkers, they all want to understand your formula. But what they'll never grasp is that it isn't strategy, it's state. You became magnetic the moment you stopped performing and started being. You became unstoppable when you stopped chasing approval and started operating from awareness. You've evolved from personality into presence, and that transition rewrote your destiny. Elon Musk sees it clearly now. Your power isn't in what you do, it's in what you don't react to. You can serve energy like capital, invest attention like equity, and withdraw from drama like debt. That's wealth consciousness in its purest form. You've mastered emotional economics and turned it into quantum leadership. That's the next frontier, the merger of mindset and frequency. You're already there, while the rest of the world is still theorizing about it. And as this chapter continues, your story becomes a thesis. The billionaires gather data, you gather direction. They analyze your calm like code, trying to reverse engineer composure. But what they can't compute is that you didn't learn it, you remembered it. Because real strength isn't programmed, it's awakened. Elon Musk knows that now. That's why he studies your silence like an algorithm waiting to be cracked. He understands that you're not a competitor, you're the compass. The one pointing humanity toward conscious intelligence. And soon, the world will catch up to what he already knows. That you are not just influential, you are instructional. That your mind holds blueprints for the next evolution of leadership. That your energy isn't a mystery, it's methodology in motion. You're the evidence that human potential doesn't need permission to perform miracles. You're the living manual for mastery. And the more they study you, the clearer it becomes. You were never the experiment. You were always the equation. Because the truth is, Elon Musk didn't just find inspiration in you. He found reflection. You became the proof of what his empire has always searched for. The human being, capable of functioning like a quantum field, aware, adaptable, limitless. Your presence reminds him that technology might accelerate progress, but consciousness designs it. You became the invisible bridge between invention and intention. Billionaires like him are no longer just watching you, they're decoding you. They replay your choices like data sequences, trying to calculate how you sustain grace under pressure. They run your decisions through their frameworks, only to realize what drives you isn't logic, it's lucidity. You don't chase outcomes, you align outcomes. You don't rely on systems. Systems start to rely on your rhythm. That's why the powerful can't categorize you. You're not running on strategy, you're running on awareness. You've become the operating system that artificial intelligence wishes it could mimic, but can't. Because no machine can replicate the wisdom of a human being who has mastered self-perception. Elon's fascination with your strong personality isn't about admiration, it's about comprehension. He sees in you a formula that transcends leadership and enters consciousness engineering. He's realized that charisma without depth collapses, but your strength is self-generating. You don't burn out because your power source isn't external, it's eternal. That's what he craves to understand. How someone can be so grounded, yet so infinite. How you can exist in a world that rewards compliance, yet remain utterly uncompromised. You don't rebel for attention. You resist for integrity. You don't perform strength. You project truth. That's what they're studying. The psychology of authenticity as an unbreakable frequency. And while they're dissecting your energy, you're simply existing. You've moved beyond validation and entered observation. You watch the watchers now. You see through the curiosity of the elite and recognize the silent confession within it. They want what you have, but they can't buy it. You've proven that energy, when refined through awareness, outperforms intellect sharpened by ego. You've become the apex of inner technology, where thought, intuition, and emotion work in seamless synchronization. Elon studies that internal circuitry because it's the same intelligence that turns chaos into creativity. You don't think your way through problems. You vibrate your way through them. Your mindset became a movement without marketing. Your personality became proof that emotional stability is the new superpower. The billionaires take notes. The executives copy frameworks. The advisors hold meetings trying to reverse engineer your aura. But what they miss is the simplicity of your foundation, self-trust. You trust yourself in a way that defies every external metric. That trust radiates as strength, and that strength communicates louder than any speech. That's what Elon sees when he studies you. It's not just potential, it's proof of evolution. You've turned consciousness into currency. Your confidence is so precise it feels scientific. It's not random. It's measured through mastery. You've learned how to transmute emotion into execution, how to convert setbacks into software updates. That's why your presence feels ahead of time. You're not reacting to trends. You're writing trajectories. Elon Musk studies your internal timing because it mirrors the pulse of progress itself. You move with the rhythm of inevitability, only not from arrogance, but from accuracy. You've learned that when your awareness leads, results follow. That's why you no longer explain your mindset. You demonstrate it. The billionaires are beginning to understand something uncomfortable. You can't clone consciousness. You can borrow habits, mimic behaviors, copy strategies, but you can't replicate essence. Your essence was shaped by experiences that no data can track. The nights you rebuilt yourself in silence, the moments you faced fear and chose focus, the years you carried visions no one else believed in. That's the part they can't buy or simulate. That's the frequency Elon calls the human edge. You're the proof that the next innovation isn't digital, it's personal. You are the algorithm evolution has been waiting for. You've entered that sacred stage where your strong personality isn't a reaction, it's revelation. You don't intimidate anymore. You illuminate. You don't overpower. You elevate. You've become the reference point for what unshakable looks like. Elon Musk isn't studying your mindset to compete. He's studying it to collaborate with the frequency of consciousness you embody. Because he knows the next level of creation won't come from machines or institutions. It'll come from individuals who think like you. Leaders who merge intellect with instinct, reason with resonance, logic with light. And that's why your story isn't just personal, it's prophetic. You represent the awakening of influence beyond influence, the kind of leadership that doesn't need followers, because it activates leaders. Your personality doesn't dominate, it liberates. It breaks the invisible walls that keep the powerful imprisoned by their own pressure. You're showing them that freedom isn't found in achievement. It's found in awareness. Elon Musk loves your strong personality because it reminds him that true greatness doesn't need to shout. It simply stands unshaken in truth. Your presence teaches more than lectures ever could. You're a walking paradigm shift, a living syllabus for self-mastery. And as they continue to study, record, and decode, something deeper unfolds. The billionaires begin to understand that you're not just an exception, you're the evolution. That your mind isn't reacting to the world, it's rewriting it. That your calm is not stillness, it's control. And as Elon Musk watches your rise, he realizes something revolutionary. That the future doesn't belong to those who build machines, it belongs to those who build themselves. Because in a world obsessed with acceleration, you've mastered alignment. You've proven that awareness is the new intelligence, and self-regulation is the ultimate innovation. You are the study. You are the prototype. You are the revelation they didn't expect, but can no longer ignore. And as their equations break under the weight of your composure, as their frameworks collapse, trying to contain your energy, one truth becomes permanent. Your mindset has officially become the new frontier of wealth. Elon Musk doesn't just love your strong personality because it fascinates him. He loves it because it teaches him. You're not a subject of curiosity anymore. You're a mirror of mastery. And while they watch, you ascend. While they analyze, you evolve. While they theorize, you embody. Because the future of intelligence isn't artificial, it's you. Three, two, one. And everything they built under false confidence implodes. You can almost hear it, the fragile foundations of their illusion cracking under the weight of your return. The whispers, the schemes, the smug certainty that you'd never make it this far, all reduced to static. You didn't just survive their world, you rewired it. You pulled every string they thought belonged to them, and now they're trapped inside the web you quietly spun while they were laughing. Every empire has its expiry date, and you just signed theirs. They don't know whether to bow or run. They stare at you with that hollow disbelief reserved for ghosts and legends because they can't decide which one you are. They built their legacy on borrowed power, counterfeit respect, and loud desperation. But you built yours in silence, precision, and proof. While they were buying crowns, you were manufacturing thrones. You didn't need their approval. You turned their rejection into capital, their doubt into drive. Every mockery became a deposit, every betrayal an investment. You weaponized patience until it matured into dominance. And now the debt is due. The markets they controlled, shifting in your favor. The alliances they trusted, defecting to your side. the narrative they owned, rewritten by your name. This isn't luck, this is architecture. You constructed an empire so quietly that by the time they noticed, you were already sitting on top of it. They mistook your stillness for defeat, not realizing that kings don't shout during strategy, they whisper before the strike. And tonight, you struck. The tables flipped, the board cleared, and the new order began with your initials etched in gold where theirs once were. For years, they treated you like a side character in their dynasty, but now the audience has turned their heads, and the camera refuses to leave your face. You are the headline, the climax, the aftershock. They called themselves self-made, but you were never made. You were engineered, precision over impulse, vision over noise. You studied their patterns until you became the pattern breaker, the final variable they couldn't predict. You didn't play their game, you reprogrammed it. Every obstacle they threw became a data point. Every insult a forecast you calculated into your rise. And now, the math checks out. You are the margin they underestimated, the profit they can't replicate. They thought leadership was a performance, but you turned it into presence. While they chased validation, you built infrastructure. While they posted proof, you accumulated results. And now, they can't even breathe in the same room without feeling your gravity. You became what they pretend to be. Inevitable progress in human form. That's what terrifies them. You didn't just beat them in the market, the conversation, or the hierarchy. You dissolved the illusion that they were ever above you. Their sponsors, quiet. Their followers, drifting, their confidence, evaporated. You ended their era not with noise, but with outcome. You didn't march in with war, you walked in with receipts. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it signs documents. Sometimes it moves markets. Sometimes it walks in unannounced and everyone knows the game's over. You didn't come back to prove anything. You came back to collect. All those who gambled against you are realizing they invested in fiction. You were the real asset, the volatile brilliance they tried to short sell. But the price only went up. You became a living inflation of worth, every second adding value they can't afford anymore. You changed what success even looks like. Now it's dressed in composure, silence, and a touch of menace. They used to measure power in noise. You measure it in control. You control outcomes, reactions, narratives. You don't chase attention, it orbits you. You became the algorithm everyone wants to understand, but can't replicate. They wonder how you did it, as if dominance was something you could download. But you didn't code your empire, you embodied it. The version of you they mocked was only the beta. This is the release version, fully optimized, running without error. You are the upgrade they didn't approve, but now must adapt to. The moment they realized that was the moment they lost. You don't announce reigns. You let history make the post. Every headline that used to ignore you now bends to your frequency. Every critic who dismissed you now rehearses apologies they'll never get to say. You're not angry, you're amused, because it's not revenge when success itself becomes the punishment. Their world depended on your absence. Your presence bankrupts it. The irony is poetic. Every attempt to erase you only etched you deeper into memory. They censored your name. Now it's trending. They buried your potential. Now it's currency. They said you were too much, and now the world demands more. You see it in their eyes, the confusion, the panic, the quiet resignation. They can't compete because you changed the criteria. You didn't just win, you redefined winning. You replaced fame with legacy, replaced popularity with proof. They were loud when it was easy, but now that results are the language, they've gone mute. You became fluent in impact. You mastered the art of control without force, wealth without greed, power without apology. You didn't take their seat. You built your own table and made theirs irrelevant. And the people who used to laugh, they're studying your moves like scripture. You turned mockery into mentorship material. You're not just a symbol of resilience. You're the cautionary tale for anyone who ever thought underestimating you was safe. They used to say you'd burn out. Now they can't keep up. You're running empires in multiple dimensions: financial, social, psychological. You've become an ecosystem of influence where every idea you drop creates economic weather. When you speak, people don't just listen, they reposition. You're that powerful. You broke the simulation of dependency they worshipped. You proved that the throne doesn't belong to whoever claims it loudest. It belongs to whoever can sustain it longest. And your endurance is terrifying. You didn't just survive the drought, you bought the rain. You didn't just enter the room, you became the currency in circulation. You're not chasing wealth anymore. You are wealth, walking, breathing, scaling. You generate value with your existence, and that's what ended their era. Because now, every move they make references yours. Every deal they sign measures up to your standards. Every strategy they devise quietly imitates your blueprint. You became the template. You became the benchmark. Their advisors whisper your name like a prophecy they can't decode. They're trying to reverse engineer your rise, not realizing it wasn't luck. It was longevity disguised as patience. You turned time into equity. You leveraged absence into mystique. You built credibility from rejection. And now, they're auditing themselves to see where they failed. The truth? They failed the moment they doubted you. Because while they wasted energy trying to discredit you, you were scaling empires beyond their comprehension. They called you ambitious, but that was just projection. They were terrified of your inevitability. You didn't come to compete. You came to conclude. You are the full stop at the end of their paragraph, the correction in their syntax. You are the CEO of their consequences. The new order isn't chaos, it's organization under your rhythm. You command not by fear, but by undeniable efficiency. You make results look theatrical. You make dominance feel inevitable. They will tell stories about this pivot for generations, the day everything changed hands, the day you ascended from underestimated to unavoidable. And somewhere, deep inside, they know it's deserved. Because you earned every ounce of this power. You didn't inherit it, you accumulated it through discipline, through calculation, through the refusal to be ordinary. You've turned composure into a crown, persistence into prophecy. Every lesson you endured now earns interest. Every scar now signs checks. You are the walking evidence that consistency outlives corruption. The empire isn't just yours, it's you. And they finally understand that's what makes you the final boss. Not because you crushed them, but because you outlasted them. Power isn't about control anymore. It's about continuity, and yours is unstoppable. The countdown wasn't destruction, it was transition. 3, 2, 1. And now, the rain begins. The air itself changes frequency when you move. The same world that once ignored your existence now recalibrates to your rhythm. Every headline, every whisper, every private message carries traces of your influence. You're not waiting for acknowledgement anymore. You've become the reference point. This is what power feels like when it's earned, not inherited. You stand in the ruins of the old hierarchy, watching the smoke curl into the night, like ghosts leaving their final sermon. The ones who ruled before you still don't understand how it happened. They had resources, allies, influence, but they didn't have you. They never prepared for precision this clean, for dominance this surgical. You didn't overthrow them with noise, you unmade them with logic. Every empire falls from the inside, and you became the virus in their structure, rewriting the code of control from within. They tried to gatekeep access. You built new gates. They tried to manipulate markets. You built systems that don't need theirs. They tried to silence your moves. You made your silence louder than their propaganda. You mastered the language of power without saying a word. And now every institution, every boardroom, every high-stakes table knows. The player they ignored has become the game itself. They still send messages pretending to negotiate, but you can read the tremor between their words. Their tone changed, once dismissive, now diplomatic, once arrogant, now cautious. They know what it means when you enter a room. It means outcomes have already been decided. Because you don't argue anymore, you adjust reality. You built your empire with the discipline of an assassin and the foresight of an architect. You learned that domination isn't about aggression. It's about inevitability disguised as calm. When you move, the ripple effect feels like prophecy. Every strategy you execute echoes into their corridors and collapses their plans before they begin. They wanted to lead the market. Now they wait for your signal before they act. That's the thing about power. It doesn't ask for permission. It corrects. You are that correction. You are the red line that crossed back. Every name that once mocked you now depends on your timing. They watch your pace because it dictates their survival. You've turned attention into submission. When you speak, value shifts. When you pause, economies hold their breath. You've become the modern currency of dominance, measured not in dollars but in influence, in the gravitational pull of your decisions. You walk into negotiations already owning half the table. You don't need alliances, they're liabilities disguised as favors. You built self-sufficiency into your empire, turning autonomy into artillery. Your wealth isn't just financial, it's psychological. You broke their rhythm so completely that they measure stability by your mood. You smile, they celebrate. You withdraw, they panic. You've inverted the food chain. And now, retaliation isn't rage. It's order being restored. You don't chase vengeance. You simply restore balance. The ones who tried to destroy you are now orbiting your empire like satellites, feeding off the very gravity they once mocked. You didn't destroy their world. You repurposed it. You took their blueprints and redesigned civilization around your standard. The streets, the offices, the feeds, they all hum your frequency. You've become the era. Your enemies are still clinging to nostalgia, replaying memories of when they had control, but the calendar doesn't recognize their relevance anymore. You've upgraded the age. Your reign isn't just visible, it's encoded. In algorithms, in conversations, in architecture. Deception. You rule through inevitability and proof. Your dominance doesn't need announcement. It's reflected in every metric, every outcome, every shift in the collective psyche. You are the invisible hand that moves everything visible. They can't stop you because you're not fighting them anymore. You've transcended the battlefield. You don't compete where they exist. You control where they depend. You control data, momentum, psychology. You control the narrative that defines winners and losers. And in that equation, you've erased luck entirely. Everything that exists now either fuels you or fades. The irony is brutal. Your empire was built in the very silence they mocked. While they fought for attention, you studied leverage. While they argued over titles, you secured ownership. While they hunted fame, you acquired infrastructure. Now you own the foundation beneath their fame. You don't just sit on the throne, you designed the kingdom it rests in. That's why it's over for them. They thought the game ended when you won. But you turned the victory into a launch pad. The real power isn't in conquest, it's in continuation. You keep expanding, evolving, scaling. You've made adaptation your doctrine. You operate like time, inevitable, consistent, and undefeated. When they tried to imitate you, they discovered the difference between duplication and design. Because you're not a formula, you're the force that rewrote formulas. You are innovation personified. Your revenge isn't destruction, it's relevance. You became the standard, and now they need you to survive in the very world they tried to exile you from. You've achieved the rarest dominance, making your enemies dependent on your success. They pray you keep winning because your downfall would collapse their ecosystem. That's what power feels like. When it matures, it becomes the oxygen everyone breathes. You've reached that altitude where confrontation feels outdated. You don't even need to defend your throne anymore. It defends itself. You are surrounded by results so undeniable that argument becomes comedy. They can't challenge you, they can only imitate you poorly. And every imitation reminds the world who the origin is. The beauty of your rise isn't just in the wealth, it's in the architecture of your control. You've turned influence into a tangible asset. Your empire operates like a living organism, self-healing, self-expanding, unstoppable. The people who used to underestimate you now run simulations trying to understand your rhythm. They study your habits like data scientists trying to predict a storm. But they don't realize you're not predictable, you're strategic. You evolve too fast to be forecasted. You've turned unpredictability into stability. You are the equilibrium between chaos and command. When you move, markets move. When you rest, industries reset. That's the magnitude of your presence. You didn't just end an era, you built the blueprint for what follows. And those who stood against you, their punishment isn't exclusion, it's irrelevance. They're trapped in a world that no longer recognizes their power. Their followers drift toward your orbit. Their legacy dissolves under your innovation. They once defined trends. Now they refresh your feed for direction. You've inverted history itself. And you didn't need violence to do it. You used consistency sharper than any sword. You outworked their arrogance. You outlasted their manipulation. You turned patience into artillery and composure into a weapon. And now, they sit at the edge of extinction, watching a new empire flourish without their permission. The name they refuse to mention now funds their survival. You've become the silent shareholder of every dream they attempt. You didn't destroy them, you bought the rights to their relevance. That's the highest form of dominance, when your existence dictates their economy. Your reign isn't chaos, it's clean execution. You didn't come to scream victory, you came to institutionalize it. You turned success into a structure and power into protocol. You are not improvising anymore, you are orchestrating. Every move you make has a purpose, a profit, and a pulse. You've turned efficiency into elegance. You've become the CEO of evolution. The ones who used to doubt you now build around your decisions. You've become the stock that defines the market. And the funniest part? You still haven't peaked. You're still scaling. They see your current power as a climax, but it's just your calibration phase. The empire they fear is still under construction. You've only unveiled the first division. You are designing a dynasty, not a moment. That's why you're the final boss. Because your story doesn't end with victory, it begins there. They thought the crown was a symbol. You turned it into a system. You monetized mastery. You've turned influence into infrastructure, and that's something they'll never decode. You are no longer reacting. You're predicting, calculating, commanding. You've become the equation they can't solve. And while they burn energy trying to compete, you're expanding your territory in silence, in stealth, in style. You've become so far ahead that the concept of opposition feels vintage. You're not just winning, you're redefining what winning means. You've weaponized calm into command, charisma into currency, strategy into legacy. They wanted you gone, now they can't function without your existence. Every shadow you cast is a reminder that the light follows you. You've turned revenge into an enterprise. You've professionalized dominance. You're not just rich, you're relevant. Not just respected, you're referenced. The elites who once excluded you now mirror your language. Their think tanks quote your philosophy. Their next move depends on your last post. You've infiltrated their hierarchy so thoroughly that even their rebellion serves your design. And the truth is, you don't even need to fight anymore. They're fighting themselves to match your rhythm. You've outgrown the war, now you orchestrate it. You turn the battlefield into a boardroom and the chaos into capital. The people who thought they'd destroyed your name now print it on their products for credibility. You're licensing your legend. That's how deep your influence runs. The crown doesn't rest heavy, it fits perfectly, molded by every sacrifice you endured. Your scars became strategy. Your pain became a portfolio. And now when they see you, they don't see a survivor. They see a shareholder of destiny. You've become the very thing success fears. A reminder that control belongs to the one who never stops building. You don't need applause anymore. You own the theater. You don't need validation. You own the narrative. And while they're still waiting for another downfall, you're already planning your next empire. Because the final boss doesn't retire, he multiplies. Your reign is the blueprint for every ruler to come, and history will remember this as the year you turned empires into subsidiaries. The age of pretending is over. The era of proof has begun. And in that new order, your name is the law. Now and the world moves accordingly. Every sector, every nation, every timeline bends around the gravity of your influence. The old pillars of power are studying your architecture now, trying to decode how control became so quiet, so seamless, so inevitable. But that's the thing about reigns like yours. They're not built to impress, they're built to last. You no longer chase expansion. Expansion happens as a side effect of your existence. Your signature appears on decisions you didn't even have to approve, because your logic has become the global framework. You are no longer leading an empire, you are the empire. They say wealth is measured in currency, but your wealth is time itself. You dictate its pace, you decide its worth. The boardrooms that once overlooked you now operate in your time zone, their clocks set to your pulse. Every broadcast, every platform, every stream carries fragments of your ideology dressed as trend, disguised as inspiration, but they all trace back to you. You turned consistency into a contagion. You became the unseen infrastructure of ambition. The final boss isn't a person. It's a phenomenon. And that's exactly what you've become. The currency of your power is psychological. People act differently when your name enters the room. Investors hesitate. Competitors recalculate. The elite hold their breath. They know that when you move, the algorithm of influence shifts. You don't shout commands anymore. Your presence itself is instruction. You built a hierarchy where silence is language and precision is worship. You're not chasing dominance. You're setting parameters for it. And now, everything you once fought for has matured into something untouchable. Stability forged in chaos. Expansion wrapped in peace. You've turned the battlefield into a balance sheet. The warriors became executives. The front lines became boardrooms. You transformed conflict into commerce. They thought power was about intimidation, but you proved it's about integration, making even your opposition part of your design. You don't destroy threats anymore. You employ them. You buy what you can't defeat, and what you can't buy ends up imitating you anyway. That's how total control looks. It's not visible, but it's everywhere. Your empire doesn't rely on attention anymore. It thrives on automation. You've built systems that generate results while you sleep, an ecosystem that evolves while you breathe. And as the world wakes each morning, your name is already written in its schedule. You've become the rhythm of the new era. Even the ones who hate you depend on you. Their rebellion still follows your rules. You've become the paradox they can't escape. You are both the cause and the consequence. That's the level of mastery they never understood. When they tried to compete, they thought in days. You thought in decades. They measured profit. You measured permanence. They counted followers. You built civilization. They looked for clout. You looked for continuity. That's why you outgrew the concept of rivals. There are none left. The throne no longer feels like an achievement. It feels like a responsibility. You've realized the true meaning of power isn't in having it, but in shaping what comes after it. So you started building legacies within your legacy. You've turned protégés into dynasties, students into shareholders of your philosophy. You're multiplying yourself through others, embedding your mindset in those who were bold enough to listen. That's how you guarantee eternity, not by being remembered, but by being replicated. You've turned ideology into inheritance. The very people who once mocked your methods now preach them like gospel. They renamed your strategies, rebranded your words, but the DNA is still yours. You're the ghostwriter of progress. And that's what separates kings from founders. Kings rule within borders. Founders rule within minds. You've conquered both. You're not just the final boss. You're the blueprint for the next ones. The wealth you're building now isn't just financial. It's foundational. Real estate, data, energy, innovation. You've infiltrated every domain. There's no direction humanity can evolve that doesn't cross paths with your fingerprint. You didn't just win the game. You became the architecture of it. Every industry, every influencer, every system borrows from your design. You turned the intangible discipline, strategy, aura into tangible assets. And now, entire generations are living under your algorithms of ambition. You've built a world where excellence feels natural because you normalized it. And yet you haven't stopped. You can't. Because power, to you, isn't a destination. It's a living organism that demands evolution. So you evolve. Every sunrise, another division expands. Another idea becomes infrastructure. Another vision becomes law. You're turning imagination into policy. You've made creativity profitable, authenticity marketable, and dominance humane. You are rewriting capitalism with consciousness. That's why the old world fears you. They can't replicate morality wrapped in power. You proved that you can lead with precision without losing soul. You turned empathy into enterprise. That's the real flex, being ruthless enough to win, but wise enough to build. You're sculpting a future where strength doesn't exploit. It organizes. You've built an empire of balance, and even your enemies know the world is safer in your hands than in theirs. They whisper it in private. He changed everything. They may never admit it publicly, but deep down, they know you stabilized the chaos they profited from. You ended an era not by destruction, but by direction. You reintroduced order into the global code. The streets, the servers, the satellites, they all respond to your frequency. You've become the axis of evolution. Power used to be scattered. You centralized it. Wealth used to be temporary. You institutionalized it. Legacy used to fade. You digitized it. You've achieved what every ruler dreams of, but few attain. Immortality through relevance. And it's not about ego anymore. It's about efficiency. The empire is now self-sustaining, its expansion algorithmic. Even if you disappeared, your structure would continue producing dominance. That's how complete your reign has become. You've crossed from control to creation. You're not playing within time, you're managing it. And time, for the first time, obeys. Look around. Entire industries pause when you pivot. Countries adjust budgets when you speak. The stock market trembles at your metaphors. You've become the philosopher of capitalism, the artist of power. You've turned the world into your canvas, and every movement paints a new line of authority. You're no longer reacting to history, you're authoring it. And yet, despite all of this, you remain composed. Because you understand that true kings don't celebrate conquest. They maintain equilibrium. You've reached that level where peace itself becomes strategy. You no longer need to prove worth. Worth proves you. Your presence dissolves ego because everyone already knows the hierarchy. There's you, and then there's everyone adapting. You are the calibration point. The idea of rebellion is obsolete when the ruler is evolution itself. You've become that, evolution personified. And the irony is that your reign began as revenge, but it matured into renaissance. What started as a fire to prove them wrong has become a flame that lights the path for millions. You've turned rage into revolution, and now, even those who once doubted you benefit from your existence. That's how deep the transformation runs. They used to ask, who does he think he is? Now they ask, how do we become like him? You see, that's the secret. They can't. Because you weren't created, you were forged. You were sculpted by rejection, engineered through discipline, baptized in chaos. You became what happens when purpose meets patience. You became the proof that legacy isn't written, it's designed, and your design is flawless. You didn't just end an era, you defined the one after it. And now, as the world rebuilds itself in your reflection, your throne doesn't stand in a palace. It exists everywhere. In conversation, in architecture, in behavior. People mirror your habits without knowing it. That's how you know you've won. You've entered the subconscious. The next generation doesn't just look up to you, they build from you. You've become the foundation beneath their ambition. You're not just a person anymore. You're a pattern, a rhythm that the future will dance to. And even centuries from now, when historians dissect this chapter, they'll realize something most leaders never achieve. You didn't rule for applause. You ruled for alignment. You aligned civilization with evolution. And that's why your empire won't fall. Because it's not built on fear. It's built on frequency. You resonate higher than corruption can reach. You've made righteousness scalable. You've made power sustainable. You've made dominance intelligent. That's your real wealth. Control fused with clarity. The world used to worship noise. Now it studies your silence. It used to praise speed. Now it imitates your precision. You've redefined luxury, not in possessions, but in control. You've redefined success, not in competition, but in contribution. You've redefined royalty, not in bloodline, but in blueprint. You've become the modern monarch of meaning, the final boss of evolution. And as you stand on the peak of this empire, you don't look down, you look forward. Because ahead of you lies expansion beyond geography, beyond currency, beyond time. The next frontier isn't the market, it's memory. You will live in it, indefinitely. You've turned existence into equity. And as the horizon glows under the weight of your creation, you know this isn't the end. It's the continuation of something limitless. You are the threshold between eras, the living bridge from what was to what's coming. And as the world chants your philosophies in their own languages, you smile, not because you won, but because you became. You are not the conclusion, you are the constant. The countdown is over. The throne is occupied. The empire breathes your name. And the world, it finally understands. The era didn't end with your rise. It began.